Hi everybody, today it's September the 13th and I want to give you another update on my founder trajectory. So I'm in my third week and this week I've actually focused on building my business model canvas. So prior week I've started to really think about the value proposition and now I've built a broader business model canvas. So I will briefly show you how I did it, but I will also do a kind of brief reflection on what is actually the added value of building this business model canvas. So let's get started.
Founding out loud.
Yeah, so this week I have built my business model canvas, which is a famous kind of instrument that Osterwald Ingenieur initially launched and that is used a lot in venture building trajectories. And actually to help me, I've built a GPT where I instructed it to be an expert in helping novice entrepreneurs in building a business model canvas. This is also what I give to my students, and of course I now try to use it myself. And you can simply start using it by pressing start here, and then it will ask some initial questions. So it will say, okay, let's build a business model canvas together. Just share your ideas, and then you can give your value proposition and already some ideas on your business model canvas, and then step by step it will support you in kind of building the business model canvas, making sure that it's consistent, that all the elements are clearly identified. And to be honest, I think in this way, in like 15-20 minutes, you can create a very good kind of first draft of a business model canvas. So I don't think that's extremely difficult, extremely spectacular. So that also triggers, of course, a bit the question like, what is actually the added value of a business model canvas exercise? It's something that a lot of people do. And actually by doing it myself, I again realized that for me, there are actually three core advantages of building a business model canvas. So let me briefly explain you what, according to me, are the three core advantages. So here you can see the business model canvas that I have built. And actually for me, a core first advantage of building a business model canvas is that you're forced to really think about the ecosystem of your business model. So who are actually all the actors that will be or should be involved when developing your value proposition? And for me, for instance, I came to realize when building the business model canvas that an important kind of stakeholder, which I did not yet identify upfront, are conference sponsors. Yeah, so a lot of conferences will have sponsors. And actually, I think that for my business model, they can be an additional revenue stream. Because in my business model, I want people to do challenges, but actually maybe the sponsors can come up with challenges so that the participants can do challenges for the sponsors. And that could even be an additional kind of monetization trajectory, but can also allow the sponsors to have more engagement with conference participants. So by doing this business model canvas, I suddenly realized this is actually a stakeholder that can be very interesting, both in terms of engagement, but even in monetization. So that's for me a first important advantage, that a business model canvas really forces you to think about the broader ecosystem in which your business model is embedded. A second important thing is that a business model canvas makes your implicit assumptions more explicit. Yeah, so when we are thinking about the value proposition, you will have a lot of ideas, nice ideas, but often there are a lot of implicit assumptions, and a business model canvas make them explicit. For instance, in my case, I think I have the assumption at the moment that anonymity in the initial stages of the collaboration is an added value. And I also have a fundamental assumption that actually establishing already meaningful connections before the conference is something that people are interested in. And I think intellectually it makes quite some sense to have these assumptions, but of course I will have to test these assumptions as quickly as possible, because if these assumptions are not confirmed, then I know that I will have to do a very radical pivot or even stop with this idea. And I think that's a big advantage of the business model canvas. It simply forces you to put your ideas on paper, and in that way your implicit assumptions become more explicit. So I will have to test in later stages whether anonymity and the focus on pre-conference establishment of connections really makes sense. Finally, I think a third advantage is that a business model canvas is a good starting point to really think about what is my unfair advantage? And I think also I myself, again, this week made a bit of mistake of initially focusing too much on the value proposition as the core source of unfair advantage. So I was thinking like, how can I differentiate myself from competitors? And again, I think this anonymity part and pre-conference part allows me in the short term to differentiate, but they are not really kind of sources for unfair advantage, because it will be very easy for competitors to copy these features if they really want. So in the end, these are just features that allow me at the moment to differentiate, but are they really the source for a long-term competitive advantage? Actually, I don't think so. But by doing the business model canvas, I realized that I think there is much more room for an unfair advantage in the part of the key resources. I think if I can create a platform and really keep data about which people are matched, when do matches trigger real collaboration, which kind of challenges trigger engagement, that very quickly I will have very rich data that could create an interesting data source that will be very interesting for conference organizers, but again also for sponsors. So I think in the end, this business model could be really a data-driven business model where the quality of the data that I'm collecting can really be an unfair advantage, which would be much more difficult to imitate. And so that's why I think for me, this part, the matches, which kind of challenges trigger engagement, when do people want to collaborate or not, I think really collecting data on this and by means of algorithms really analyzing this could be an unfair advantage that is a bit more difficult to copy. So in the end, I think this ecosystem aspect, the fact that you have to make assumptions explicit, and the fact that it helps you to think about your unfair advantage are actually the core pluses of having this business model canvas, which in the end is a very straightforward tool. You can create it in 15 minutes, but it's more that it can be the starting point to address some points that otherwise might remain too implicit at this stage. So that's what I briefly wanted to share in this video. So I'm moving forward. Actually, I'm now planning to do a first analysis of willingness to pay, and I will give you an update on that in the next video. So thanks for your attention. Bye.